Okay, now for the wet ingredients, I need 1 stick of softened butter. If you forget to take the butter out of the refrigerator before you're going to cook, you can either put it on the preheating oven for a little while. I have my oven preheating at 350. It's best to put it on a plate so it doesn't get too melted, or I just cut it up into tablespoons. It has the tablespoons on the side here. And put it in a small dish and put it in the microwave for just 10 or 15 second increments until it's soft. The butter, my butter got a little bit too soft here, but you should be able to put a finger indentation in it. If you can't do that, then your butter's not soft enough yet. So put your butter, if you don't have a KitchenAid or something like this, you can easily do these cookies, or the yummy bars, I mean, by hand. So we're going to cream together the butter and sugar. For the sugar, I need 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I have a 1/4 cup measuring cup in here. I always keep measuring cups in all of my baking ingredients. So for the brown sugar, I scoop it and then pat it down like this until it's level with the measuring cup, because you want packed brown sugar. Brown sugar is always packed. That's a 1/4 cup. And when you pack it down like this, the excess just falls off. Okay, so for the white sugar, I need 1/4 cup. My measurement in here is 1/2 cup. Baking is very precise. Cooking, you can kind of eyeball things here and there, but if you eyeball it in baking, it probably won't turn out as you think it's going to. It might, but it might not. So don't eyeball it when you're baking. And also, I told you for flour that you shouldn't scoop and shake, but that's an okay thing to do with sugar. At least I think so. So add that, and then cream the butter and sugars together until they're well combined and fluffy. I always use the paddle attachment on my KitchenAid instead of the whisk. Well, I shouldn't say always, but usually when I'm making cookies I do. The whisk, I think, is more for making cakes and batter when you want to incorporate air into it. I want to show you what it looks like when it's all creamed together. Oops, sorry, it's kind of dark. Okay, after it's creamed together, you want to add 1 egg. Here's another little trick about eggs. Eggs should also be at room temperature almost all the time when you're baking, but recipes frequently don't tell you that. So if I forget to take my egg out of the refrigerator when I take out the butter, you can quickly warm up the egg to room temperature by putting it in a bowl of pretty hot water. You don't want to cook the egg, but warm to hot water for 5 to 10 minutes, and then the egg will be at room temperature. Sometimes my butter comes out kind of, the butter and sugar mixture gets kind of chunky, and I figured out it was from having a cold egg. Next, you can add the vanilla. I need 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. And it's okay if you put a little bit extra vanilla. I frequently let it spill over the sides a little bit. When I'm creaming together the eggs and butter and sugar and vanilla, once the egg gets kind of incorporated, I usually put it up to pretty high speed. It's also good to just make sure you scrape down your bowl once in a while, because I know butter tends to get stuck at the bottom of my bowl. Okay, now you want to grab your dry ingredients from before that we whisked together and add it a little bit at a time. I always use a measuring cup just to make sure I don't add too much. And mix it on low speed until it's just incorporated. You don't want to overmix it whenever you're baking. Unless the recipe tells you, you don't want to overmix it. After you add the last bit of flour too, make sure that you scrape down the bowl just to make sure that everything is getting fully incorporated. Oh man, this smells delicious, and since I'm not eating processed sugar, I cannot even sample the batter. But I've sampled it numerous times, so I can attest that it is phenomenal. going to show you again what it looks like now that I have all of the flour incorporated. Sorry, it's so grainy and you can't see very well. Okay, now comes the yummy part of the yummy bars. We are going to add oatmeal. I always buy a ginormous container of it because I love oatmeal. White chocolate chips and M&Ms. These yummy bars are really fun too because M&Ms always come out with different colored M&Ms at the holidays, so they can easily become a fun treat to bring to a barbecue or a potluck, or like at Easter they always have pastel colored M&Ms, so they're a fun thing to bring. And kids and adults love them. Okay, we're going to add a half a cup of each of the three things. Got that all over my counter. First add the oatmeal and then mix it in, because once the M&Ms and white chocolate chips get thrown in the bowl here, you don't want to mix it for very long. And actually I'll probably just stir them in with a spoon. Okay, now I have taken the dough off of my KitchenAid and removed the paddle. And I'm going to add the white chocolate chips and the M&Ms. And like I said, I'll use a spoon to stir them in. If you add them when it's on the KitchenAid, the M&Ms can get broken up into pieces, and I just don't like that, so I don't. I stir them in myself. Okay, half a cup of white chocolate chips. Oopsie. It's alright. This part of baking is not so precise, so if you add a little bit more of the filling, that's okay. And the M&Ms. Sorry, it's so loud. Okay, and I'll just stir that together. Yummy. Doesn't that look delicious? Okay, so originally this recipe called for these to be made into cookies, but I got too impatient making the cookies, so I started making them into bars. And I also started using a round pan because for some reason every time I cooked them in a square pan, the corners would dry out, and I don't like that. So I started cooking it in a round pan, and it seems to work a little bit better. So I'm just transferring them here to my round pan. Okay, so I've transferred it into my round pan here. I'm just smoothing it out with the back of my spatula. I forgot to mention that you do not need to grease the pan first because there's plenty of butter in the recipe. And this dough is also very versatile. Sometimes if I don't have M&Ms or I don't have white chocolate chips, I'll just throw other things in. One time I made it with white chocolate chips, mini chocolate chips, and Heath Bar instead of M&Ms, and it was delicious. I also think it would be good with white chocolate chips and craisins. So, okay, now I have it all set in my pan. Pop it into the 350-degree oven, and it only needs to bake for about 12 to 15 minutes. I promise you, it will get very dried out if you cook it for longer than that. So I'll show you what it looks like before or when I get it out of the oven, because it does not look done. So I'm going to set my timer here for 12 minutes, and I'll check back later.